Good morning. So I'm Mindy Tate, CEO of Franklin Tomorrow, and I think I know most of you. Do we have any first-time attendees to Frank Talks here this morning? Yay! We have stickers for you and a pen and all that good stuff, but welcome to our monthly Frank Talks lecture series. We've been doing this for several years and are so appreciative of all of our partners who help us present our events so that they can be free to the public. We never want cost to be a barrier to what we do for the community. Franklin Tomorrow 2025 was our 25th anniversary as a community visioning and engagement organization, and we are so appreciative of our partners who help us do that. We have sustaining partners, we have partners for specific events, we have partners who help us by providing food and beverage. We've got McDonald's, who's our coffee sponsor. I see Andy Marshall is here from Puckett's, who is our breakfast sponsor at Breakfast with the Mayors. Thank you, Andy. The next one of those will be January 28th, if you want to mark it on your calendar, at Rolling Hills. So we're excited to see you there. But back to today, Frank Talks is presented. Our sustaining partners are Atmos Energy, and Christina is here, Christina Christensen there in the back. Atmos is a great community partner for many, many organizations in Franklin and Williamson County and beyond, and we appreciate them. Reagan Smith, which is a Pape Dawson company, and I don't see Jessica, I don't see Alan here, but thank you to Reagan Smith for their continued support as a sustaining partner. And then also Williamson Health, and I know Greg Brory is here, and we have, come on up and say a few words, and we have a short video after you do that. Grab one of those mics.
Good morning. On behalf of the 2,400 employees of Williamson Health, I'm delighted to be here. It's Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and we want all of the community members to be mindful of their lung health. Let's take a look at a video about lung cancer screening currently offered at Williamson Medical Center.
Pulmonology is the study of lung diseases, ranging from things like asthma,
emphysema, or otherwise known as COPD,
interstitial lung diseases,
pneumonia,
and lung cancer.
So the low-dose CT scan is a new benefit for patients that is a screening platform that we use to identify patients with early-stage lung cancer.
So a lung nodule is a spot on the lungs that is not normal lung tissue. It can really run the gamut from something totally benign, which is the most common findings, to the most extreme cases, which are what most people think about, which is lung cancer. So the most common risk factor for lung cancer is smoking, but it's not the only one. And so there are a number of other risk factors, other occupational exposures, asbestos people know about, radon exposure, which is a common chemical released from our Earth's core. Cancerous lung nodules show up sometimes without any symptoms, which are what makes it tricky.
So a lung navigator is someone who guides patients through lung cancer screening, diagnosis, treatment, and care.
Lung navigator is very important in this process because, like I said, this is an anxiety-provoking situation, and so we want to be able to negotiate this process as streamlined, as expeditiously as possible, and so that lung nodule navigator is that point person.
We make sure they have a full understanding of their diagnosis. We answer all questions that they have. We make sure their treatments are done in a timely manner. And we also make sure that they have access to all the resources that they need, such as support groups and financial assistance. I want to make sure that they are supported and guided, and to let them know that I'm going to walk this journey with them right along beside them.
The whole reason we do screening CT scans for patients is that we want to identify lung cancer as early as we can because the treatment options are better.
So now that we're doing all these screening studies, we're finding cancers earlier. We've got the ability to use advanced techniques now that we can get to these nodules in all parts of the lung when they're at very small sizes in order to get a diagnosis early.
As we look forward to 2026, Frank Talks will continue on the second Monday of every month. at various locations. And we have some partners who sponsor just those specific events related to specific topics. And Brady Cannon is here from Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Vanderbilt is one of our sponsors, always for City Hall on Wheels and also for a couple of our Breakfast with the Mayors in the year. So thank you to Brady Cannon and thank you to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, did anybody watch any football this weekend? I heard the Titans got beat by the bye week. I don't know. Yeah, it's the best week they've had in a while. That's really pretty true. Yeah, it's just like, it's kind of funny. But Renaissance Bank is our presenting partner for Frank Talks, and we appreciate their continued support in 2026. Thank you to Diane LeBlanc and Tony Sharp. Tony, do you want to say anything?
Just real quick.
Grab a mic.
Just real quick, just want to let everybody know, proud to be a sponsor here. All of our branches now have barrels in there for 1 gin away. So if you have some food, some non-perishables, bring them by our branch. We'd love to get those so we know all that's going on right now and they can really use any support. So enjoy the video.
Thank you. And so now it's your 5-minute funny. How about that?
First in the Shark Tank is an SEC team with historical success, but a bumpy season stands in his way. He'll try and pitch his playoff worthiness to the Sharks.
Sharks. What if I told you there was an SEC team out there that starts slow, plays down to its competition, and finds new and unique ways to let inferior competition hang around until this team eventually pulls away and wins?
Go on.
And what if I told you this team just played its most complete game of the season in a dominating win on the road?
I can already tell you I'm in. And these two better not even get in the bidding war with me because I'll double any offer. You're exactly the kind of team I'm looking for.
Well, okay, Georgia, it looks like you have your date to the dance.
Wow, so cool. I'm flattered, but I don't think we want to rush into anything right now.
Sure you do. There's a contract right there for you to sign.
Oh, December signs. Super busy for me, Christmas shopping. I don't have a pen, so.
Now you do. Hey, let's shake on it.
Oh, sorry.
Shake his
Hands
hand.
are so moist.
Come on.
How about a counteroffer? Huh? 2-hour untelevised practice on my campus.
I am liking what I'm seeing here. Very manageable schedule left in the year. I definitely think we
Sharks, we're out.
It's the stupidest conference ever.
What I propose to you is we make the first and semifinal rounds an on-campus game, which will explode fan interest and make a football experience that will last a lifetime.
I love this idea. Very creative, very well thought out. I'm in. But instead of all the things you just said, how about this? We ditch all the on-campus playoff games entirely. We replace the first round with whatever drab, meaningless bowl game antes up the most money, regardless of how geographically inconvenient it is for both fan bases.
Students wouldn't show up anyway.
Sharks, what if I told you there was a Big Ten team out there
I'm out.
who just completed an insane comeback requiring an 80-yard, 2-minute drive culminating in the touchdown catch of the year? And they did all of this in one of the most hostile environments in all of college football.
So this hostile road environment, the team that plays there is good this year, right?
Funny you should ask, because I will now be passing out samples of my strength of schedule. So Sharks, you be the judge. What if I told you there's a video streaming app on the market today that struggles with video quality, lag, audio sync issues, credentials and login information, terrible user interface, and is vastly outperformed by many competing apps in the same space?
I'll have my on-air talent reading corporate stooge-like pre-written memos about how amazing it is by the end of the day.
And who do we have next? It's
Schedule 2 hard games a year, lose 2 hard games a year, go to the playoffs. Guy's a genius. Sharks, don't let things like records and results distract you. We are a national brand with historic patterns of success. We're on the ground floor of a rebuild, and we have a very passionate and involved state government. I'm out.
out.
Definitely out.
I'm in.
I still got that Joe Burrow National Championship.
So we're undefeated with a win over top 10 Notre Dame, and we just crushed Missouri on the road. Sharks, I'd like to present the Texas A&M Aggies as a playoff-ready team.
I'm so in.
Not as in as me.
I'll outbid both of you.
I don't think so.
Let me see you try. Aggies in Atlanta.
Okay. We're all gonna go on a three-way partnership to lock you down.
Well, it was worth a try.
Wait, what?
I guess we'll always just be 8-4 Texas A&M.
Literally impossible for you to go 8-4 this year.
Bumbling Aggies always messing up our coaching hires.
Couldn't have nailed the Elko hire better if you tried.
Sharks, thank you for your time.
What did you do to him?
Generational trauma.
Next up is Missouri, an SEC team looking for playoff.
Sharks?
I'm in!
We're so back.
Wow, that was the best episode yet. Okay, a solid, serviceable episode on a slow weekend of college football. And this episode was brought to you by Renaissance Bank, understanding you.
Sharks, Nashville 911. A procedural drama about love, duty, and traffic on I-65. Sharks, who's in?
You put this bad boy on our mothership network, and we will give you 3 in-game ad spots per commercial break per game for an entire season.
It's the worst show on television currently. You know, I've been around emergency services for over 40 years, and if some of those things actually happen, I don't even know that we could even in any way be prepared that happened on that show. Again, a big thank you to Lion Leadership Group, the local franchisee for McDonald's, for providing coffee this morning. Thank you to Diane LeBlanc, who prodded them into giving it to us this morning since they forgot to make the coffee at 8 a.m. So we're really appreciative of that. We're appreciative of both of them, perhaps more Diane this morning, so thank you. Happy birthday to Roger Walters. Where's Roger? Happy birthday, yay. So I just want to briefly keep you informed a little bit about our Healthy Democracy Project on October 21st. How many of you were at breakfast with the mayors and the Heritage in Liberty Hall? Thank you. So we had more than 400 people in attendance on October 21st to listen to citizens, particularly our youth in the community, about ways to increase engagement. And we had students from Williamson County, Franklin Special, Battleground Academy, Franklin Christian Academy, other schools as well, with us that morning to talk about this. What was interesting is we had tabletop discussions. And so the students sat with adults and individuals, shared ideas, and we used a crowdsourcing app, Mentimeter, to see those ideas flow up onto the screen. And I think if you were there, you heard Nick Vallejos, our consultant, say he really hadn't ever seen an audience response that rapidly and as many answers as were offered. So it was a great morning for us. While breakfast with the mayors is a regular thing, we did use this one with the support of the City of Franklin as part of our participation in the National Civic League's Building a Healthy Democracy project. Franklin and Franklin Tomorrow were the National Civic League's partners in 2025 in this project. We've done a lot of citizen input and meetings. We're not done yet. We're looking at a date in December to bring back the groups and forming some committees for next year on increasing youth engagement in our city, but also citizen engagement in our city. And so we look forward to that. And next, the results from the comments and the next steps will be released in December fully. And then a huge thank you to Nick Vallejos and Rebecca Trout from the National Civic League, who have been to Franklin several times, along with Derek Okubo, to work with us. This project will continue in 2025. Our commitment or our alliance with the National Civic League was for 2025. So we will be looking for funding and other ways to continue this project into 2026 for implementation. So we're excited about this project and the opportunity to engage youth in our community. They are very excited. They want to have a role in both civic life and in government. They want to be engaged in our community, and so it's exciting to be part of that. So we're going to have City Hall on Wheels today. I'll have something to say at the end of the program, but I'm going to turn it over to Eric Stuckey. Here's the clicker, and come on up, Eric, and we'll go from there. Clicker.
All right, you ready? All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us in this cold Monday morning, and we're excited to share with you some things about the city and some specifics, I can't speak yet, I'm too cold, about our development process and what goes on in that process and how we work to make it successful, strategic, and the right fit for Franklin. And so I want to give the mayor an opportunity to kick it off, say a few things, and then I want to make a really important introduction of a new team member. So, Mayor, take it away.
Yeah, well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for getting up so early, and thanks for going through all the snow and so on. So anyway, you know, I want to just kind of try to set the stage. You know, I'm fortunate to have some really, really smart people here today to talk about what we do as a city. I call them the Brain Trust, but really appreciate the hard work that they do, and I think you'll be impressed when you hear them this morning. You know, we're hearing a lot about growth. We're growing too fast. We're seeing cities in the Middle Tennessee area talk about stopping growth. Some of them are stopping growth because they don't have the capacity to take care of growth, whether it's water or sewer and so on. I hope after you've been here today, you'll better understand what we do as a city to manage growth. For 30 years, we've been growing at 2,000 people a year. So proportionally, our growth has slowed, and certainly we're seeing some effects of that statistically. You know, I would challenge anybody to show me a community that's better planned in the long range than Franklin, Tennessee. You know, we start with park plans, road plans, land use plans. We were maybe the first in the Southeast to do an integrated water resource plan, determining what our needs would be for the next 25 years as far as water and sewer, and also at the same time, we've facilitated implementation of impact fees to make sure that developers are paying their fair share. You know, we're blessed with great schools, a very talented workforce. We have a lot of Fortune 5,000 companies here in Williamson County. In fact, many people describe Franklin as the economic generator of the state. And I think whenever you look at where all those Fortune 5,000 companies are, we have more Fortune 5,000 than Nashville. So there are 95% of our business, and I want you to listen to this, 95% of our businesses are not the Fortune 5,000 companies. They're not the big Wall Street Journal list of companies. 95% of them are small businesses. And I think I would ask the question to those small business owners, do you want to stop growth? So that would be the question I would pose to them. So I hope this morning that you'll get a good feel for how we're planning, how we're managing growth, and what we're doing is very, very important to the community. So I'm going to turn it back to Eric now.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to make an introduction of a new team member. As many of you probably know, Vernon Girth, who has served as our Assistant City Administrator for Community and Economic Development, is retiring in the middle of December. Vernon has served us very, very well for nearly 19 years, and so we have to fill those shoes. And so we went into a process to look at that. Vernon let us know well in advance, so we've been planning for that. And we went and did a national search to look and find the right fit for us. And we found that person. Walter Denton joins us. Walter has a 30-year career in local government as a professional, the last 23 of which as the city administrator in O'Fallon, Illinois. Walter can maybe tell you a little bit more about that, but it's a active city, a vibrant, growing city, not as large as Franklin, but has faced a lot of transition, and Walter has been right at the lead of that and making that positive for that community and building a great team there as well. So we're excited to have him join us. I want to give him a little opportunity to just say hello and talk a little bit about what he's learning in his first, I think you're in 4 weeks now, so he knows where all the bathrooms are and has met a lot of folks, and we're just excited to have him on board, and then we'll jump into our topic. So Walter?
Thank you, Eric. As he said, I just got here a month ago. I have not quite moved to O'Fallon yet. I'm living in an apartment. I close on a house in Franklin on Wednesday. So anyway, I have, as he said, I've been a city administrator in O'Fallon, Illinois. If you don't know where that is, it's a suburb of St. Louis. Fast-growing community. One thing, being here for 4 weeks, some of the issues on growth and long-range planning and development are issues that I was very familiar with in O'Fallon, and so I think that's something that I can bring with me to help with the group here. I haven't been here long enough to be a part of this group to make a presentation. Maybe next time I'll know enough that I can be a part of the panel. But one thing I did want to share with you is that when I was telling people in O'Fallon that I was moving to Franklin, nearly everybody knew about Franklin. Your brand travels far, at least to St. Louis, because nearly everybody I talk to either knows somebody or is related to somebody who lives in Franklin or has visited Franklin, and they all said, Franklin is the coolest town. I really wish I could live in Franklin. He goes, we're going to come visit you, is what they said. You know, these are people who never wanted to visit me when I was in O'Fallon. So O'Fallon's a nice town, but it's not Franklin. So anyway, I want to let you know, you live here and you may not know, but your image and your brand of being a premier community travels far. And people know how great Franklin is, and a lot of it's because of the work that these folks have done with the well-planned community and the board of mayor and aldermen, and you as community leaders have made Franklin what it is. So I'm working as hard as I can to meet people and to go to as many meetings and events to meet people. So I hope I get a chance to meet you later, and we can help Franklin grow together. So.
Thank you, Walter, and you can see we're excited to have him join our team. So today's topic, we want to really give you a look behind the curtain. What happens around development, the planning that goes into it, the process that helps make it work with a focus on growth the right way that fits Franklin. Our focus is to capture the opportunities that growth presents, but that stay true to the heart and to the character of our community. We love this place. We have dedicated our profession to helping build this place. So we care, and we want to do it right, okay? So we want to give you some insight about what that's about. Mindy talked about the Healthy Democracy Project. At the heart of healthy democracy is transparency. So we want to give you some insight about what's behind that, how we try to connect to the community, connect to the goals of the community, the vision of who we are and what we want to be, and how that translates into the process and the work we do every day. Our board sets a vision and an ideal of what we want to be and how we respond to what the community's needs are. And this is the team's job then to respond to that and put that into action. And to work with the many, many partnerships that make it happen. It is not a city solo gig. It is a team effort. It is an orchestra, in fact. We work with the state. We work with the county. We work with private landowners. We work with developers. We work with regulatory agencies. We work with the community. All that comes together in this process. And so we're going to go down the line and talk with our different folks. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and then talk a little bit about some key components that take place in managing growth and effectively working to reach community goals. And so we'll start with planning. Go ahead and talk a little bit about quickly who you are, what you do, and then jump in on your topics, and we'll just work it down, and there'll be a little bit of dialogue, and hopefully we have some time for questions at the end. So we have Andrew and Amy to start it off from the Department of Planning and Sustainability. Take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. We do have a couple slides on there, so if you wouldn't mind starting the first one, it's the Williamson County Growth Plan slide. This sort of sets the framework for the planning jurisdiction, the planning area that the city has control over. And last year in 2024, the Williamson County Growth Plan was adopted. It was updated for the first time since it was created in like 2001. So it was quite a lift. It was a big lift. All of the municipalities in Williamson County participated. The city of Franklin, as you can see, is in like purple. And the darker area of purple represents the city limits. And then the lighter kind of purple, that shade, is the urban growth boundary. So today the city limits are approximately 45 square miles. And then the lighter shade of purple is about 30 square miles. That's the urban growth area. That's the area the city could grow into over time, and that we have jurisdiction to plan in terms of transportation and land use. So the state outlines it as a 20-year area for growth. So areas that you could grow into in the next 20 years. Amy will talk a little bit about annexation and how that actually occurs. But I did want to mention the growth plan update that was adopted last November, actually about 12 months ago. There were also some interlocal agreements that were part of that growth plan update, including that the coordinating committee that met to kind of shepherd that through the process will continue to meet informally as like an advisory committee, I believe quarterly every year until in 5 years from the adoption, they're supposed to convene to see if there's enough energy or enough desire to actually update it again.
Let me touch on two things related to this that I think are important. Our urban growth boundary actually reduced. We made it smaller, but we also made it more aligned with infrastructure. So there are areas in the west in particular that we removed. They're difficult to serve, it just didn't fit. But there are areas in the southeast in particular that we added that fit in terms of drainage basin, transportation network was more logical. So we tried to do it in a way that's more aligned. And those interlocal agreements that Andrew just referenced actually were recognized by the state chapter of the American Planning Association for the level of collaboration and how that brings people together to make sure we're managing growth effectively together over the long haul. We don't want to not look at this for 20 plus years and have it not make sense. We want to have it be regularly something we engage in and think about and have those updates on a regular basis to keep it in line with community needs.
Yeah, that is a good point. The city's urban growth boundary was reduced by, I believe, like 360 acres. And we did add territory in the Goose Creek area, and that's where you're seeing a lot of development with regards to Berry Farms and In-N-Out Burger headquarters and restaurant, and the K-Love radio station headquarters. There's sewer down there. There's a brand new fire station. There's an interchange. City is investing some dollars into infrastructure down there as well with the Long Lane overpass. The next slide goes is in regards to Envision Franklin. Yeah, you can go to the Envision Franklin one. Thank you. Nope, back. There you go. Yep. I did want to touch on there are 9 guiding principles in Envision Franklin, which is the city's land use plan. It's the city's long-range plan, and that includes areas in the city and in the urban growth areas. And there are 9 guiding principles. The first one that's mentioned is managed growth, because we recognize that is important. We've heard it from the community. We've heard it from decision makers. We understand as well the importance of aligning infrastructure and land use and growing where it can be supported. So I do want to read a quick little excerpt from that. It says, the city seeks responsible and purposeful growth that enhances quality of life, promotes a dynamic mix of land uses, and preserves its scenic quality. So many of the policies within Envision Franklin kind of relate back to that. Also, along the perimeter of our urban growth boundary, a lot of areas are coded as development reserve, and development reserve areas support one single family house on 2 acres. So it's It's very low density. It's kind of a holding pattern until infrastructure is able to be expanded or is and becomes available. So there are parts of our urban growth boundary that are very rural today and that are coded as development reserve. And then, if and when they become more developable, then that future land use designation can be amended and changed from development reserve to something that's more active. If you want to go to that third slide, please. Within Envision Franklin, in the appendix, we do have an annexation analysis. And we look at, we've analyzed these urban growth areas in terms of drainage basins. So we have these drainage basins that are outlined on the map. And the blue areas are those areas that are in the urban growth boundary that are in the county, that haven't been annexed. So this annexation study really looks at those areas within each drainage basin, and you'll probably hear a little bit from Mark later on about the importance of having gravity sewer to serve these areas. So we don't have pump stations all over town, and we do have some pump stations, but you want to try and minimize those and be able to serve areas with gravity sewer. So the areas that you see experiencing growth in our community are served by sewer. That's really one of the main driving forces for growth and development. And part of the reason why the Goose Creek area is growing the way that it is, because sewer is available down there, and it's available to be extended from where it is today. Some of the other areas, the sewer is a really long run, and it's very costly to get sewer out to these areas. So that's part of why the West Basin and the Goose Creek area are these short-term annexation areas, because they can be served by sewer. They can also be served by maybe some other city facilities and infrastructure, such as fire stations, or the roadway. The streets are a little bit more supportive of growth than in some of the county areas and the urban growth boundary. So, anyways, on this map, we've broken down the basins into kind of these three categories of short-term growth areas and then mid and long. So you can kind of see that the West and the Goose Creek are the short-term, and everything else is going to require some infrastructure investments and maybe time to really, make those areas more appropriate for growth. And I will pass it along to Amy to get on to annexations.
Yeah, so, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Amy Diaz-Barriga, Assistant Director of Planning and Sustainability for the current Planning Division. And so the point I want to make about annexations, so that everyone can be aware of the process, is that the city and the elected officials are not continually going out and land grabbing as they see makes sense. The process that has been set up by state law is that annexation happens primarily by property owner request. So what that means is that the city is waiting for a property owner to approach us with the idea that they would like to be a part of the city. And state law also allows for the consideration of non-contiguous annexation, meaning that a property does not have to touch the city limits today to be considered to be annexed into the city. So that does set up a lot of dilemmas, I believe, for our elected officials when considering how do we grow the city. But what Andrew's already explained is that we have such a great multi-layer documents and plans set up so that we can really consider when annexation is appropriate. So, as a property is brought to us, these are the things that Andrew has talked about, this urban growth boundary of where we think it's appropriate to grow in a reasonable amount of time is something that we consider. Is the land being brought to us in that area? Then we look at things like our Envision Franklin plan. What does that plan tell us about how we see this property being able to grow and being able to be served by the city? That's another document that we look at when we're considering these annexations. We also work with our county colleagues because, as you can imagine, you can look at the map of the city limits. We're not a box. right? So we're going to have little nooks and crannies of how the city limits interact with the rest of the county. And so we're working with our county colleagues to understand and have interlocal agreements about how we continue to serve our constituents in the right way, particularly with infrastructure, streets, things like that. So that's the main point I want to make in terms of annexation. And I can answer any questions as they come up or at the end, but we have this multi-layer system of how we look at how that property can be served to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, that the development patterns are appropriate, that there is a long-range plan of how this can be managed effectively, but that we are at the mercy of property owners coming to us. So, and some of the other gentlemen here can talk about some of the other plans, the infrastructure plans, utility plans we have in place that we're also looking at when we do annexations. Anything else to add there? Okay.
So what happens when somebody brings something to you that does not fit the land use plan? What's that discussion like?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have many conversations over the years with citizens, property owners, realtors, developers who are kind of looking at properties, and a lot of those never really go beyond that conversation that we have. And then, sometimes property owners, we've had a couple in this past year that are kind of in the midterm growth area, so there are some infrastructure kind of limitations and constraints that they're trying to address as part of that. But if they do want to move forward, there is an annexation initiation process whereby our staff puts together a draft plan of service, and it goes to BOMA for a discussion and then a vote if they're interested in kind of going through the full process or not. Because sometimes it's a quick no. It's like, we're not interested in that. So then the process can just kind of end there. But sometimes it is. And then at that point, it could be an Envision Franklin plan amendment, and then it could be the full annexation. So there's several processes involved, and it could take upwards of a year to kind of go through those.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main points there is that none of these documents are static. We're constantly growing, we're constantly changing. The state's constantly changing. Things are always happening around us. And so even though maybe our long-range plan doesn't today, it might put something in development reserve in the document that you can find on the website today, but that was done not today. So, right? So, a place that has development reserve was maybe documented that way 5 years ago, and now an interstate has been widened, or another property nearby has extended sewer, and so now sewer is nearby. So even though the map doesn't say, it may say development reserve in our long-range plan, we still have to think about it and analyze it to say, but has there been changes that could make it more appropriate to annex? And that's when, like Andrew said, we have that Envision Franklin plan amendment that changes, or we update our transportation network plan because things have happened. And so keep in mind, just because a map is saying something, we're a dynamic community.
I think it's fair to say, though, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we have had every bit as many not work, not go beyond the next step, not be approved for annexation, or even stepping into the review of annexation because it just doesn't fit. You hear about the things that go deeper in the process, and sometimes the perception is that's all that's happening. There are many, many projects that don't make it off the ground because they just don't fit. And this team makes that clear and shows that alignment or lack of alignment as we move forward. So that's the kind of thing you probably don't know, but that these folks work diligently on to make sure that there is a fit and that is strongly considered as things move along. Now let's talk engineering.
Yes,
Jimmy.
I'm Jimmy Wiseman, the Assistant Director of Engineering at the city. And long before most people ever see a plan publicly or in front of an audience of any kind, they come to us, they're talking about annexation, they're talking about infrastructure. You've heard that a few times already today. And our important job as engineers, and first and foremost, I like to say, you see us up here, but there are a lot of people that are working behind the scenes that really care and do a really good job. Some of the brightest, minds in the state, in my opinion, working on these plans with the development community. So they come to us, and the number one question is, do I have to do a traffic study? And the answer most of the time is yes. And then we are tasked with analyzing that traffic study way before it gets to the board so we can answer those questions. Is there capacity in the roadway infrastructure? And if there's not, what needs to be done so that there is capacity available? So we have that way ahead in the process. There are at least 3 different traffic engineers that review these plans before they get in front of the board. So, and you could take 30 different traffic engineers and get 30 different answers. We understand that it's a dynamic thing, that differences of opinion occur, but we're doing our best job with the brightest minds that we have available to get it right. And just want to point out some of the success stories we have for as far as developers paying their own way and getting these projects done that maybe the city's not capable of doing at the time the development comes to us. And since 2017, we've had 18 essentially capital projects that have been done by developers. You heard the mayor mention our road impact fee program. That allows us to take the impact fees that they're going to pay into the city and reimburse them either all or a portion of the work that they're going to go out and perform. And just to highlight a few, the Market Street extension, which is under construction right now, that was a 12 to 13, maybe even now $14 million project that the city only reimbursed. I think it was less than $2 million, if I remember correctly. So the developer paid the rest of that out of pocket. So that's a big connector, collector road that gets you out to 96 from the north. The other one would be Ford Classic Homes just finished the Goose Creek Lewisburg intersection improvements. If you've been down there, they paid $1 million of utility relocations out of their own pocket. The city did not pay for that. We reimbursed them the roadway impact fees, and that was it. So just seeing that the developers are actually going out and getting these projects done cheaper and faster than the city can do. And not to mention the stormwater stuff we're looking at. Every single annexation that comes in, the first question is usually, besides traffic, is usually sewer availability. So we take our sewer model and make sure that we can serve them with sewer, and then the same with water if they're in our water district as well. So there's a lot that goes into it before we ever even consider it being a possibility to serve property if it's annexed, and then we go through the proper steps to make sure that the infrastructure is built out appropriately so it can support the development. And I'll pass it on to Paul to talk.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Jimmy talked about impact fees. So that's roadways, water, sewer, parks, and we have significantly updated those in just the last couple years. Dramatically increased them, quite frankly, to make sure it's reflecting the true cost of the impact of that new growth, that new demand on services or on infrastructure. So there was a lot of angst around that, a lot of worrying, wringing of hands by the development community as we did it. We all heard it, lots and lots of discussion, and we get that. But we also need to have it directly relate to the true cost. And so we've done that. And I will tell you, the pace of development, the amount of investment has remained steady and strong. 2024, 2025, well, 2023, 2024, and 2025 will all exceed $800 million in permitted investment in each of those years. So that's not just a plan, that is people pulling permits and building stuff. So I don't think those impact fees were too much of a barrier. Things kept going. We have to have the strength of the conviction to assign the right cost to the infrastructure. One of the brilliant things the board did, and the mayor kept pushing them on this, is they also indexed those impact fees so that they will more naturally keep pace with inflationary pressures when we don't have to catch up as dramatically every 4 or 5 years. So that's a really important component that we've put in place to make sure development helps pay its way. So Paul, talk more about infrastructure.
Okay, I'm Paul Holzen. I'm the engineering director for the city of Franklin. I've been with the city for about 16 years, and I absolutely love it. Just to highlight a little bit more of what Jimmy said and connect the planning aspect to the transportation is every time we look to update or change land use, we will generally do a traffic study with it. So we have what's called the Cool Springs Transportation Study. That acts as a guide when a developer comes in and wants to do improvements. We know exactly what we want, where we want it, and we can coordinate that with the traffic studies. When we did large annexations out in the Goose Creek area, we also did a Goose Creek transportation study. Again, that guides us to give us a roadmap for when a developer comes in. And as Jimmy stated, developers build a substantial amount of infrastructure for us. Moving on to the next slide. This is absolutely amazing, 44 projects. This shows our board's commitment to funding infrastructure projects. Some of these are funded solely by the city, many are funded in partnership with the state of Tennessee, but we have a city team that is dedicated to delivery of capital projects, and that is a lot of projects over 10 years. The other big thing is our board recently just moved forward with a new CIP. 2 years ago, I would have said we should not touch a state or federal route without federal dollars being brought to the table. Unfortunately, there is not enough funding at a state level. We're having to rethink that. So, for example, Mac Hatcher Southeast, can we wait another 10 years before that road gets widened? I think if anybody sits in that traffic, they would agree no. So our board stepped up and has pledged $50 million to help fund that project as part of the statewide partnership program with TDOT. We're one of the few communities that actually got selected. Two other projects that I would highlight that they just funded was Mac Hatcher Northwest intersection improvements at Hillsborough Road, and then also Franklin Road north of Mac Hatcher. So our board is really stepping up to the plate to fund many of these projects. Get the next slide. And this shows some of the projects we're currently working on. For example, McEwen Phase 4 and then McEwen 5 we're doing in partnership with Brentwood, which the city of Brentwood is paying the majority of that project. And then also Columbia Avenue, Long Lane, a few multi-purpose trails that are out there. Many of those multi-purpose trails will go for federal funding to try to fund those projects. But again, our board continues to look at capital projects, where we should invest money, where the city needs to grow, and we're doing our best to deliver those projects as quickly as possible.
So let me call out a really important component to all of this, and Paul touched on it. State transportation network. So if I say places like Franklin Road, Columbia Pike, Lewisburg, Mac Hatcher, Murfreesboro Road, 96 West, I-65, you ever been stuck in traffic in any of those? Anybody? Everybody, right? Well, the reality is we have a funding problem in the state of Tennessee. The state has documented somewhere around $38 billion of transportation need. Mayor and I were in a meeting with the transportation commissioner a few weeks ago. He said that number's closer to 70 plus billion. 1.3 billion a year is being invested in it. And a significant chunk of that goes to maintenance. So we are pretty far out of whack in addressing those needs directly. So we've had to think differently. It goes against every fiber of my being to pay for a state or federal road, but we have a need to respond to. Paul referred to the widening of Southeast Mac Hatcher. We are one of only 9 partnership projects across the whole state that got funded, and that's because Franklin stepped up. We're going to keep looking for creative ways to do that and deliver for our community. Paul talked about a number of smaller projects. There might be another one on Mac Hatcher on the Southeast that we'll talk about tomorrow night, that we're trying to find ways to get some things done to at least make it better till larger investments take place. But when you talk to state representatives, you talk to people, finding that capacity is critically important. We're trying to do our part, but we really need state investment to step up and match the need, or we're going to have bigger problems down the line. And we're doing everything we can at a local level, but that's just something really important to keep in mind. Let's talk water and sewer.
Okay,
Mark.
we could do that.
Who are you, first of all?
I'm Mark Hilty, Assistant City Administrator of Public Works. I've been with the city for 19 years. Yeah, just had my anniversary here at the city, so it's a wonderful place to work. So about 15 years ago, staff was contemplating adding wastewater treatment capacity. And to the board's credit, they had requested that we take a step back and look at water resources more comprehensively and how the community interfaces with the water resources we have, particularly the Harpeth River that runs through our community. So what we ended up doing was developing what we refer to as the Integrated Water Resources Plan, which was referenced a little earlier. And what it does is really use the river as sort of a measuring stick on success of the projects that we wanted to evaluate. So a result of the plan was a list of recommendations that since 2012, my goodness, since 2012 we've been implementing. We recently finished adding wastewater treatment capacity at the Claude Yates facility behind the high school. We upgraded the water treatment plant on Lewisburg, a number of other projects that came out of it. And we continue to update that plan as time presses on. One of the graphics you see on the screen right here is a projection of our population, which we spent a fair amount of time on. And I think it was Ken or Eric a little earlier ago saying we're growing at a very consistent pace. This kind of reflects that. But we were pretty happy that we remain pretty well spot on with our projections. And this is sort of one of those key pieces that we use to essentially program in projects as they are needed. So the integrated plan really, I think, allows us to, again, planning is huge when it comes to water, wastewater, because you can't get a permit in a day. You can't design a plant it takes a couple years to do that at least. So these projects are very long term, so you need to understand far in advance what you're faced with. So we've been in the process of designing and evaluating additional treatment capacity. We've been doing that for years now in the southeast part of town where Pearl Park is currently being constructed. So some of the other pieces that we use to help evaluate development as it comes to the city has two hydraulic models, one for water, one for sanitary sewer. Each development is essentially the capacity needs are allocated into these models. We identify projects that may need to happen to accommodate this, and then turn around and require that the developer perform those projects. Same with, well, we do that with a lot of our infrastructure, but anyway, so those models have been calibrated and they're very useful. We use the models for our own projects as well, not just the development projects. It was mentioned earlier, the basins. We have basin plans for each of our, I refer to them as sewer sheds, but you know, I don't think anybody else does. So,
they do not.
I like it better. So really what that does is lay out really the two-dimensional and three-dimensional sort of layouts of the infrastructure that will carry wastewater to either the existing wastewater treatment facility or the projected new one. So those basin plans have also been really useful in evaluating these developments. So, and it was mentioned earlier, but impact fees. Impact fees are huge. We have roadway impact fees, water, sewer, parkland impact fees. As mentioned briefly before, we've raised those fees considerably because, as we probably all know, we know costs have gone up pretty considerably. So the attempt is to kind of pace those fees so we can really plan for and build projects in the future. It was mentioned that the fees are indexed a little while ago on the wastewater side because things, the needs on the wastewater side are relatively high, comparatively speaking. Those fees have been established and are in place for calendar years 26, 27, and 28. So we'll be going back here in a couple of years and reevaluating those and going to the board and seeing if we need to make adjustments. But those are constantly being looked at because we want to make sure development pays its way. So let's see, what else today?
Do you want to talk parks?
Yeah, parks. Okay, so the board this past year or so has invested a fair amount of money in preserving open space, particularly downtown area. There's other areas as well, but we've added dozens and dozens of acres to the city's park system. Hillhaven Lane is an example. I don't know, do we own that yet?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in-
I
yes.
didn't know if
Yes.
it was on our books or not. But anyway, so that piece of property provides us access to Roper's Knob, more convenient access to Roper's Knob, which we're thrilled about. City staff is working on a master plan for that property to make sure that we could get folks like you out there and explore that wonderful historic property. One of the other pieces, again, impact fees. We increased impact fees for Parkland from $4,300 per essentially single-family unit to about $5,300. So again, costs are increasing. We want to make sure we keep pace with it. So anyway, that's really.
Add to your list, Creekside was
Oh, yeah,
acquired. That's
Creekside.
about 48 acres. A really important historic location. Also, I think was an initiative to guard against development inside the Mack Hatcher Loop that would really not fit who we want to be, who we are, and to tie in and protect a historic resource, and again, other access and both recreation and open space that could be really valuable to us. I'm going to stop here. I don't know how much time we have, Mindy, but we have time for a couple questions. My one takeaway, I hope you see the thoughtfulness, the strategic focus, the diligence that these folks put into this work. Join me in thanking them first.
So we have time for about 2 questions. I'm going to go over here to Virgil.
This one's for Eric, a City Hall update on the construction.
Sure.
City Hall update.
We say City Hall is now City Hall, right? So it's working. See, it works. Yeah, so no, it is going well. We are in the early stages. We've done our first 2 early release bid packages. Those have collectively come in about $3 million under our projected cost, so that's good. Schedule is generally on target. We are using a construction manager at risk approach, which is not new to the world of construction, but is new to local governments in Tennessee. Just a couple years ago, we got the authority to do that. We will lock in a guaranteed price for that block, and it is not just a building, it is the whole block. It's a park, it's 200 parking spaces underground, it's retail space along 3rd Avenue. It is an enhanced plaza to the square that will be, think Pumpkin Fest and the 130,000 people that were just here a couple weekends ago. So it will be a great community asset and a redevelopment of that entire block. But we'll lock in that price around March of next year, and we'll be on our way 2 years from now. Around late summer, early fall is our goal to be in our new City Hall. So the Titans will open their new stadium and we'll open our new place.
Okay, Mary Ellen?
Hi, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about how the city is, it's weird to hear my voice. And specifically about the county greenways plan and the recent county greenways survey, and how greenways factor into city plans and how that may intersect with the county's greenway plans.
Well, greenways and open space are all part of our parks master plan as well. So we coordinate with that, we share plans, we work together. We have swapped land with the county to help enhance their park system and help our systems in different places where it makes sense. So we do try to very much collaborate. Green space and blueways are all part of what we look at, and we've tried to extend trails. One of the things the board did in the last update of the capital investment plan was to make sure we planned, 5 or 6 trail projects to be bid ready. So that what we find is that there'll be dollars come through with state matching grants, et cetera, and if we're ready to go, we can capitalize on that. And we've done that on a couple other projects, so we wanted to make sure we were ready, and the board gave us the funding to go ahead and do enough design work that we could go and really take advantage of grant opportunities. And Mark, do you want to add anything?
No, that's exactly right. Oftentimes when you get a grant funding opportunity, you're better poised if you're construction ready, and we've been able to capitalize on that. The bridge over the Harpeth River behind the high school was a grant-funded project. I don't know how, what was it, $3 million we got from the state of Tennessee?
It started at $2 million, and we got another extra $1 million at the end because they needed a place to go with some money, and we were ready to take it.
And Lewisburg Pike's getting a sidewalk. I'm so excited. Yay. Right.
Yep, Lewisburg Pike's getting a sidewalk, and then the first phase will just be the downtown section over to Thompson Alley. And then we're designing from that point to Matt Catcher as a future trail system that will target TAP funding from the state of Tennessee.
Thank these people for the work they do every day, but also thank them for being here this morning. And they'll be around for other questions afterwards. We interviewed, I think we've introduced every city official here except Matt Brown, our Ward 2 alderman who's here today. Thank you, Matt, for being here. Thank you for being here. We've got a couple things coming up, but we want to remind you it's very important. Tomorrow is the Veterans Day Parade through downtown Franklin starting at 11 a.m. Bundle up. It's going to be cold. But what a great day to go out and show people how much we care. And thank you to WAKM and the city for their sponsorship of the Veterans Day Parade. Also, Brandy Blanton, another alderman, was going to be with us this morning. If you don't know, Brandy is now the CEO of the Circle of Giving, which benefits from the carousel here at the factory. And they are having their first benefit, and that's a Franklin Christmas with Stephen Curtis Chapman and others. And you can find out about that by following up. Okay. And then Graceworks has their 26th annual turkey trot coming up on Thanksgiving Day. You could either preemptively run or walk so that you can enjoy the day fully, but it's always a great event. It's moved out to Cool Springs. Our mission at Franklin Tomorrow is to engage the community, foster collaboration, and advocate for a shared vision for the future of Franklin. People ask why we promote other events that are going on in our community. That's how we collaborate in our community. One of the ways we do that is we want to work with other nonprofits to have them have a spotlight, but also so we can work to make a better community in Franklin. And to that end, many of you have attended our volunteer awards in the past, Exemplary Community Volunteer Awards. They'll be in February of next year for the volunteerism of 2025. We'll be at the Franklin Theater. The nominations for volunteer awards are going to open on the first week of December. It'll be on our website. And so we really would love to get some nominations from nonprofits, individuals, other community members and leaders, because it's a great chance to shine a spotlight on the great work happening in our community that makes Franklin such a special place to call home. So Eric, you have something?
I just want to share something with you, and this is a somber note, but I just think it's worth noting. You all saw the Vanderbilt Life Flight accident over the weekend. Well, the nurse paramedic who died in that accident was a Franklin resident. So this afternoon you will see a procession as those remains are taken from the medical examiner's office down to the funeral home in South Franklin. So around 2, 3 this afternoon, you may see fire apparatus on an overpass. You may see some folks along the way. But that's part of community too, that we care for and about each other. And so you may have a little frustration in traffic in the middle of the afternoon, but know what that's about. So thank you.
Thank you. We hope to see you at our final Frank Talks for 2025. And I apologize for any confusion. Our website today said Columbia State was where we are at today. But no, we will be at Columbia State on December 8th. It's a Monday, December 8th at Columbia State in the auditorium room where we normally meet for our last Frank Talks of the year, and that will be our review of 2025 and our preview of 2026. So it's always very informative. We'll try to draw from some different sectors of the community and hear from that, and we would encourage you, that site will go up the week of Thanksgiving to RSVP, and we'll try to fit as many of you in the room as we can. But thank you so much for being here. Don't forget about the volunteer awards, and I hope to see you on Main Street tomorrow for the parade. Have a great day.